My name is Pim Stolk, as Sydney already said. I've been working in ING for the last 7 years or so, and did a lot of stuff, especially on the mobile application, banking application, and recently I've been doing something new, something else. And I will tell that in the next talk in January. So for today, I'll just keep it to jailbreaking and why you guys should care as engineers. Because it kind of feels like that jailbreak is basically dead at this point. To some of you, it might feel like this, but I think it's at a tipping point. So it either fades away slowly, or tomorrow we got a jailbreak on iOS 11 and this whole thing becomes relevant again. And the reason for it is that Apple is adapting so many features from the jailbreak scene into, well, iOS, that it's not really needed anymore to jailbreak. And it's so tedious, it's like a rat race. iOS 11.1 comes out, we need to find a new jailbreak, and with every update we have to find something again. But today, I want to change the title a little bit, and it needs to be jailbreaking and why you should still care, because this thing was big, and I think it still is, because most of these jailbroken devices, they are still out there and maybe running your apps. Hopefully this is your application. It's a strong, big castle, and no one can really enter it. It has, I don't know, a lot of dungeons and places to hide your app secrets, your customer data is securely stored somewhere, and no one can find it, right? That's what we want as engineers. We want safe and secure applications. Hopefully not your application. You know, being overrun by knights, burned down to the ground, everything is just visible. All these guys want to just paste all your user data on pastebin or whatever, and this is not what you want. You don't want to have knights invading your castle. Okay, in reality, it's this guy with shades and everything sitting behind his computer trying to attack it. But I think it's very important to keep security in mind before you start building your application. It shouldn't be something that you tag in later. Keep this in mind. When you start, think about what is my application going to be? What user data am I going to store? Where am I going to store it? So let's kick this off with a little bit of a story. I've been traveling a lot last couple weeks, and I'm not so sure how you guys do it in an airport, but I'm always bored. So I scan the networks from time to time, try to find all the iPhones and iPads connected to it. And yeah, after that, I try to SSH into them. Because I want to know what the percentage is of jailbroken devices still out there, because the latest jailbreak is somewhere end of iOS 10. And I want to know if this thing is still relevant, what I'm going to tell you today. So this was, I think, last week at Copenhagen Airport. 55% of the devices on the network were Apple devices. And I thought it was quite a lot already. Not necessarily all those devices were iPhones. There were, of course, MacBooks, iPhones, and iPads in there. So I run all the MAC addresses through a lookup database online, and then you can pretty much see what kind of an iPhone it is. Still, 55% is a lot. I did the same thing the other day in London City Airport. And, well, a little bit less iOS devices, but still quite a lot. It's the majority of all the devices on the network. And I really do the scans over the period of time. I do 3 or 4 in the time span of an hour, so it's a pretty representable number, I think. And then I figured, okay, those are a lot of devices. I purposely left out the numbers, but it's a lot. And I cannot connect to these devices hand by hand, you know, just so many IP addresses. So I wrote a little script, and this was in the plane. I figured I need a script that can connect to all of these devices at the same time, or at least very quickly behind each other, and tell me if it's jailbroken or not. So I came up with this. It's pseudocode. It's not the real thing. I left out a couple things on purpose. Perl or PHP, you can fire it up on the command line. But what it does, it takes an export from Landscan. It takes all the Apple devices, just grabs the IP address, and then it tries to connect with the default username and the default password for jailbroken devices. And that's it. It's that easy to see if a device is jailbroken or not. And as I said, it's a little bit of a side story, but this was the weirdest thing that ever happened to me in the plane. I was working on this in the plane. I have an aisle seat, and there was a girl sitting next to me, and she was getting kind of nervous. And I was like, what's going on? What is going on? And she said, sir, you have to put your laptop away. I said, yeah, but we're only 20 minutes into the flight, and I really want to work. No, you have to put your laptop away. And she did this, and she called the flight attendant. And I was like, what the heck? And then she started pointing at my screen. She said, what is this? You're making me feel very uncomfortable. And I was like, oh no, these words, not good. And then I tried to explain the whole thing. Yeah, but I just scanned the network at the airport and never mind, I'm lost. So being a good sport, I put my laptop away and we agreed on, I'm a coder. Anyway, when I run the script at the airport, I found out that 2% of all the devices, all the iPhones, are still jailbroken. And that's quite a large number. Actually, it's 1.9, but Keynote rounded it up for me nicely. And that's still a lot. And I could connect to this device and send stuff to it. So this is a serious problem, because it could be your application running on it. I see a hand.
Just to make sure, it's only 2% is the people that didn't change their password, right?
That is correct, indeed, yeah.
It could be
It could be way
way more.
more. I didn't take that into account. For this is with the default username and the default password. Correct. So that confirmed that this thing is still a problem and we should still care about jailbreaks. This is iOS 8. You can see from all the green, meaning all the different versions can be jailbroken. It's quite a lot, still. iOS 9, you see slowly getting a little bit more red here. So this means specific versions on specific phones cannot be jailbroken. And if you go up to iOS 10, you see even more red, but still a lot of green. So it's still a real problem and people are still actively jailbreaking their phones. The basics on how to jailbreak, SSHing into a device, what are the big boss tools and where do we store specific data or not. This is what I'm not going to cover today, but I will just guide you in the right direction. If you want to jailbreak, just Google these terms. SSHing into a phone is as easy as SSHing into a Linux box. Everyone can do it. And along with the slides, I will email Sydney a detailed deck on how do you jailbreak a phone, so you can search it online later. And if you've done that, so you now jailbroken your phone, a lot of people might think, that now my Apple device is infected with some kind of poison and it's not good anymore and everyone can get access. And in a way that's true, but you really have to take a step back and think, why did we jailbreak again in the first place? This thing originated from the original iPhone. Remember, the original iPhone didn't even ship with the App Store. Steve Jobs didn't even want to have an App Store. He said, we will all do web apps. And some guys were just immediately against it. They wanted to play tap-tap friends and this thing. So in order to do that, they had to have file system access to the device. So this guy, Jay, or also known online, Saurik, invented the first jailbreak together with jailbreak store called Cydia. And well, from that, everything basically evolved. Not from porting a game to a phone, but also enriching the entire operating system. And over the years, we saw that Apple adopted a lot of these different features. But it also meant a lot of things for us as engineers. And let's talk about a couple of tools that we should have in the shed as good iOS engineers. Because on a jailbroken device with your app on it, all the places that you thought were safe are no longer safe. Jeroen already mentioned a couple things earlier, but I want to highlight a couple more things. The keychain, for example, I always thought, for a long time at least, that this is a very safe place to store my user data. But it's really not. It's just so easily dumpable. And the keychain dumper is just a super easy little script made by some guy which dumps the entire keychain in a readable format. This script is no longer than 200 lines of code, and there's no rocket science there. Everyone can write this. It's just a plain SQLite database, and we can access it. The output will look something like this in the console. And now I have all the passwords of a user, of all the different apps, of all his Wi-Fi passwords where he connects to. So this is a thing, this is a problem, keep this in mind. Another cool tool, and I don't want to make this tooling based, but this tool is really cool, is Clutch. How many of you know Clutch? Yeah, at least a couple, and that's good, because what Clutch will do, Clutch runs on a device, and it will decompile your application for you, and it will repackage it into a different IPA, which you can download from the phone, and then read in assembly. We'll get to that later. Well, this slide I can skip, I think, thanks to Jeroen, who already explained it very well. But going through all the hassle to pin your application to the right certificates can be undone by the ease of a switch. Your whole pinning strategy is now gone again, and you're vulnerable for man-in-the-middle attacks. And they are so easy. We saw that earlier. just fire up the burp suite and you can see all the traffic that comes in. You can even pause it and tamper with the data there. No source code, no problem. As I said earlier, Clutch will just happily list for you the applications that you have installed on your phone, and it will just ask you which application do you want to decompile. Well, just, I don't know, I see someone from WeTransfer, let's try that one. No live demo today. But it's that easy. You literally select the application here, and the source code of Clutch is also no rocket science. You can just go to GitHub, look at the source code, and reason through it. And I can encourage you, because doing so, you will learn a lot about this process. But if you just want to enjoy the tooling, fire up Clutch, select your application, let it decompile it for you, and you can download from the phone a new IPA, which is human readable through an interface called, well, I don't know, Hopper or IDA Pro. I'm not sure if you're familiar with these tooling, but it is very powerful. It disassembles an IPA, which you feed it to, and it will show you a lot of pseudocode. On the left, you would see, for example, your application delegate, and it will list all the methods there that are invoked, which you can use. You can click on them, you can reason about them. You can even get an entire flow of your application. It will build it for you. So it gives you even more information to reason about the application. And as an attacker, this is something that you really want to do. You want to understand what was the mindset of the engineer? How did he reason about the application? What will happen when I do a registration? What will happen when I log in? And Hopper will really help you with that. It will even generate pseudocode for you. So this is not the real thing. This is not what I wrote, but this is what the compiler understands. And if you want to create an attack vector, this is what you need to read, because you want to understand how the application works. So now there are a couple of things that you can do. You can learn about the application, so what happens when, and Hopper is a great tool for that. And what do you want to do next? Well, in this case, one case, you could create a new application, a new IPA, and you can push that to the jailbreak store or back onto the device. So what you do is you change what you like. So for example, you want to bypass a jailbreak detection or a login or a is registered flow, and you do that in the code, on code level, in assembly, and then you produce a new executable, and this makes a new application, a new IPA, which you can just upload to the phone or the iPad again, and it will just happily launch for you. And it is crazy easy, but it doesn't really scale well. And there's something else for that, and that's what we call script. And script allows you developers to explore and modify running applications. And this is something that's been built by Saudik. And it takes, as an input, Objective-C or JavaScript. And that's really weird. And now we can have something on the phone which will accept JavaScript scripts and tamper with my application in runtime. So again, it runs on the device. It connects to your application via the process ID or the application name. And it understands JavaScript, Objective-C. And it also works on Swift, but it's a bit more difficult. It's originally meant for Objective-C, but it will happily run Swift as well. As I said, it's a little bit more difficult. So how does it look? You open your terminal and you SSH into a phone, or when I'm at the airport, I happily randomly select one, and I just browse around. I see what kind of applications are running, or what does a user have installed. And you can connect to it. You can connect to a process ID, in this case, what is it, 6060, and you can just check what's going on with the application. You get a memory address of it. You can go a little bit further. You can see the application delegate, and you can dive in, and you can go further and further and further and see what's going on. You can get the topmost view controller, and you can tamper with it in real time while the application is running. So, I don't know, let's say that this application has a class called local protective storage, and there's a property there called is registered. That's interesting. Maybe I want to override the getter of that. And it's this easy. You type this command, you override the getter of the is registered boolean, and for the duration of the application in memory, it is like this. Every time that is called, it will return true. And I know what you're thinking, like, so big deal, right? You still need access to a device, or at least you need to be on the same network or anything. And that is not necessarily true, and that's where it gets a little bit scary for me, because we can write another script, and this is just a little test script that I tried, and this is not pretty at all, but it does the trick, and it did it in under 10 minutes. This script I upload to a phone, and I will show you how later, and it will check constantly if a specific application is running. Let's say, for example, WhatsApp. We want to know when WhatsApp is running, so we constantly grab the output of the PSAUX, and we see if WhatsApp is running. If so, if it's launched or if it's already launched, we connect to it. And as you maybe can see, I highlighted it in red, we do the same connection as earlier, but now we added the script to it. And that script can be anything. It's Objective-C or JavaScript again, and you can go nuts here. For now, to illustrate the purpose of it, I just throw a UI alert view controller on screen saying, hey, could you please, for reason X, confirm your credit card again? And it will throw it on the screen. And that is not nice, because I think I am in WhatsApp, which I'm really, but at runtime, I throw a UI alert view controller on the screen. And I can even send this data, of course, back to my local private AWS instance if I like. So you don't need to be connected to that phone. Remember how I showed you that script earlier? If I find a connectable phone with a default username and a default password, I just send this tarball. And if you upload it or SCP it to the right place, it will happily unzip it for you and put everything in the right place. At the top, you see something which is called the launch daemon. And when you reboot your phone, or when some process kicks in at least, it will read the information from the plist, and it will schedule this for you. So that script which you just saw, it will just be run when you boot your phone. And it will just sit there, wait and wait and wait until you launch that application, and it will then execute what you wanted. For convenience, I packaged the script together with the frameworks with it. So I don't know, if you want to write malware, you don't want any dependencies, right? So, so you put everything into one tarball. This whole thing is under 64K, so it just goes over the wire like crazy. And the scary thing is that this actually happens on free Wi-Fi networks. Okay, I was one of these guys trying this out as an experiment to demo it to you. Don't try this at home, don't try it on a different Wi-Fi, but it is a real problem. And what can we do to prevent it? Well, it turns out we can do a lot of things actually. But it's also difficult, because you can make a, I don't know, what is it? Is jailbroken check on your application boot maybe, or any time you want, and you can stop your application. But Jeroen already mentioned earlier, don't hint towards an attacker that you found out that he's trying to tamper with your application, because he says, thank you very much, I'll try something else, which you do not know. No, just try to flag your backend calls or something, and just be aware that there's a problem with your application in runtime, and that you might not want to send data back again. But this is something that you can do. This is a very stupid check, because as an attacker, this is the first thing that I'll be looking for, and the first thing I will patch in script, because is jailbroken, I'll find it. I'll just do a search in the strings, and I'll patch it again, and now I'm good to go. I will return false. So this is not what you want to do, guys. It's better to rename the method to something that doesn't look important, but try something like, is this the default color? But it will collide with everything that you know, because the coding guidelines tell you not to do this, right? But sometimes you just have to give a little bit in. As I said, we will search for these things. We will search for the word CDI. We will search for the words jailbroken. We will search for the words hack. Just try to come up with creative things to obfuscate it for the attacker. Jeroen also already mentioned it. Obfuscate your classes, perhaps. Obfuscate how you write things. Be a little bit smarter. Try to outsmart the attacker here. For example, try to look for the mobile substrate dynamic library. It will be there on the phone somewhere. And if your device is jailbroken and you're running your application on a jailbroken phone, you can find this file. Try it. Try if you can write to /private/jailbreak.txt. It is always there on all jailbroken phones. And if it's there and you can write to it, then you know it. And then you can flag your backend calls, for example, and notify your server that this phone might be tampered with. And if you're a banking application, you might not want to allow it to do high-value transactions. I don't know. You can also do other stuff. try to disable a debugger from attaching as a whole. And this is a little bit of a strong method, and it will work. But of course, this can be patched again. So I think what I'm trying to tell you guys, it's always a lost cause. It's difficult to win from an attacker, but try to be creative, try to rename your methods, try to outsmart the other guy. It's okay, huh? It's really okay. This thing is a problem, it was a big problem, but it's getting less. What I want you to know and what I want you to take away from this evening is think about your data. Think about what is the customer data that I'm going to store in the phone? What is my own data, what I'm going to store in the phone? And where am I going to store it? Is it the keychain? Is it the user defaults? And am I going to store it in plain text or am I going to encrypt it? Yes, you are going to encrypt it. Always encrypt your data. And there are many different ways of doing so. And we can talk about this for hours. We have a security guru here in the room, and he can help you how to do that. Never store stuff in plain text on the device, because it can be found and it will be found. And be happy. It's not the end of the world. Huh? I showed you the graphs earlier, the tables with the red and the green for iOS 8, 9, and 10. You saw a lot of green there. iOS 11 is still red. There is no jailbreak as of today, but tomorrow might be a different day. So if you're going to ship your application in the near future, just think about it already. What will happen if someone will have file system access to this phone? What will happen to my application? What can they learn from my user? And how can I do something to prevent that? Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please feel free.
What's the main reason for people to still jailbreak their devices?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And I talk to a lot of people, and it depends on who you ask. Because for the millennials, it's different reasons. They want hacked games that cost money in the App Store. For other people like me, it's to pen test my own application and see if I can tamper with it. So yeah, it really depends on who you want. And what it used to be, and then I'm talking like 3 years ago or so, was missing features on iOS. And I think Apple is doing a great job on sure-locking all these applications and adopting them into the operating system as we know it.
And I don't know much about jailbreaking, but isn't there a way to jailbreak the device without disabling every security measure on the device?
No. If you jailbreak your device, all bets are off.
That is with the jailbreaks that are out there?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's deliberate by the jailbreakers, or could they have made a choice that we jailbreak the device and only allow you to bypass the App Store, for example?
No, it cannot really be done, and the reason for it is because as a jailbreaker, you're searching for a bug in the operating system that, for example, Safari was running as a root for a long, long time, and then we're going to search for a bug in Safari so we can exploit the root user access on the file system level. And once we have that, it basically means that everything as a jailbreaker runs as root. And yeah, what you going to do? You got everything. The device is owned. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much.